Доброго дня, шановні друзі! Сьогодні ми маємо велику честь і приємність вітати в нашій студії надзвичайного та повноважного посла Румунії в Україні пана Александру Віктора Мікула. Пане посол, I'll switch to English to continue our conversation. I know that you understand Ukrainian and even speak a little bit in Ukrainian.
Я вивчаю українською мовою.
Super, and you really have very good pronunciation. It's
Thank
true.
you.
But I think it will be comfortable to speak in English, and I will continue in English. So my first question will be considering your personal attitude to Ukraine, and probably you can share your history, how you decided to become an ambassador, or probably you were wondered when you received proposal to become an ambassador of Romania to Ukraine. And I know that you are really friendly to our country, and we really have very good relations, and we can talk a lot today about everything. Unfortunately, we have just 40 minutes, but probably you can share your really personal attitude. How was your first acknowledgement with Ukraine?
Well, first I should start by saying that I'm an economist by training. And I became a diplomat 30 years ago. And since I became a diplomat, a Romanian diplomat, a career diplomat, I had the opportunity to work in Budapest twice, in Vienna, in Copenhagen, in Buenos Aires. And of course, I had the privilege of being nominated as the Romanian ambassador in Ukraine at a very specific and important historical moment. And for me, the offer to come to Ukraine as an ambassador was an offer that I accepted immediately, because I think that it was a great privilege that was offered to me by offering this position. The position of ambassador of Romania to Ukraine is one of the most important in the Romanian diplomatic career, and the simple fact that the relationship, the bilateral relationship between Ukraine and Romania has become a strategic partnership this year is a proof of the importance that we grant to the relationship with Ukraine.
Super. And probably you remember, when it was your first time you visited Ukraine?
My first visit to Ukraine was in 2001.
Wow.
A long time ago, when I was the chief of staff of the then Minister of Foreign Affairs of Romania, Mircea Joana, who in 2001 was also the president in office of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. And in this double capacity of Minister of Foreign Affairs of Romania and chairman in office of the OSCE, he came to visit Kiev, and I joined his delegation during the visit in Kiev.
It's amazing. So you can compare how Ukraine developed through that time. And my next question will be considering development and evolution of our relations, probably, from the beginning of full-scale invasion. How our Ukrainian-Romanian relations was changed from the beginning of full-scale invasion?
Well, I think that the bilateral relations have changed and became closer after the Revolution of Dignity. And since the aggression of Russia against Ukraine, that didn't start in 2022, it started in 2014, our relations became closer. And this is what allowed us in 2022, when a lot of countries were thinking about how to support Ukraine to face and to reject the military aggression of the Russians. We knew exactly what to do, because our Ukrainian partners told us what they need us to do for Ukraine. And since then, of course, our main priorities have been to provide political support to Ukraine, humanitarian assistance, economic assistance, and also military assistance. We didn't speak much about military assistance in the first 2 years, because We didn't want the Russians to know very much, but in the meantime, part of the bilateral programs of cooperation, like the training for F-16 or the donation of the Patriot system 2 years ago, have become public, and we will continue to work with the Ukrainian state and the Ukrainian institutions in order to be sure that Ukraine will prevail in this fight for its independence, its territorial integrity, and its sovereignty. And of course, in the political area, in addition to what we did even before to coordinate our positions in multilateral organizations where both Ukraine and Romania are member states, the EU path has become very important. So since 2022, when Ukraine has formalized its interest in joining the European Union, the reforms and the progress that Ukraine has achieved has allowed us to move from, let's say, a request to an invitation, then to status of a candidate, and very soon we are going to see the first negotiations on the first cluster, which is the one on the fundamentals. And within this context, the political cooperation has become much more dynamic and much more diverse, because on EU affairs, the two countries are working together and will work even more intensively in the future, so that the dream of building a common future within the European Union for Ukraine and Romania will become true as soon as possible.
Thank you so much. And on behalf of all Ukrainians, I really like to express gratitude to all Romanian people and to you personally, because you stay the most sustainable our neighbor who supports Ukraine. And despite all these challenges and difficulties, Romania really supports Ukraine in all the sectors and spheres. So my sincere gratitude for such sustainability and sustainable support. And in this context, I'd like probably to ask some provocative question, considering probably how Romania see cooperation with Ukraine, comparing cooperation between Ukraine and other countries, because we know that there are a lot of different questions of Ukraine-EU integration in agriculture sector, in probably some competitiveness issues, probably some disinformation and influence of some groups. How Romania fight with disinformation and continue to follow the policy of friendly cooperation with Ukraine?
Well, it's, let's see, a brief question, but the answer could take hours, because the idea of competition is not something that we discourage. Actually, once we move from the socialist economy to a market economy, we embrace competition, because we consider that competition, fair competition, is benefiting the citizens, is allowing them to have access to a larger number of products and services at a higher quality, and at a decent price because of the competition. But it is important to have fair competition, and I think that the process of integration into European Union is offering us the possibility of developing a framework within the internal market of the European Union. It will allow us to develop a framework of fair competition between all the companies of EU member states. It will offer us also the possibility of cooperating in accessing third markets. Because I have to tell you from our own experience that Romania is a small country, and sometimes the interest in some of our partners from outside the European Union was not so big as to offer us concessions in the trade agreements or the investment agreements that we were negotiating with them. But once we became members of the European Union, then the Romanian companies benefited from the status of all the other big players of the European Union when accessing those markets. And I think that with the accession of Ukraine to European Union and the partnerships that are going to be developed with different geography, because it can be Romanian companies, companies from the Republic of Moldova, from Germany, France, and so on, we could develop consortiums that will improve the competitiveness of our companies, Romanians and Ukrainian companies, on third markets, and that will generate additional revenues and jobs for both of our economies. Of course, you discover during the negotiation process those areas where there are vulnerabilities. And where we need to accommodate the interests of the EU member states in order to be sure that, again, we are having a playground which is fair. And for that, we use the transition periods. And in those transition periods, Ukraine or the EU member states are taking the necessary measures in order to be sure that at the end of the transition periods there is fair competition on that specific sector of the economy, or labor market, or taxation, and so on. And I think that it is important to realize that every time a candidate country has to adapt to reform a certain sector of its economy, it has also access to pre-accession instruments of the European Union. So the European Union is not requesting changes without offering assistance for implementing those changes, so that the Ukrainian economy can manage potential vulnerabilities and take advantage of the possibilities that EU membership is offering to the economy. So it's not only what the Romanian players in the economic field are, let's say, preparing for the negotiations, and the Ukrainian companies are preparing for negotiations. It's a larger geographical format. So we are speaking about the whole market, and basically in the European Union, there is no big player or small player that will not feel the impact of the next enlargement wave.
Thank you so much for such diplomatic and very wide explanation of these situations. And I know that it is not possible to foresee the full membership of Ukraine in the European Union, but probably you can evaluate the approximate period and conditions when Ukraine can become a fully member of the European Union.
I think that will depend very much on the speed of the reforms. If Ukraine will keep the speed that it had in 2023, 2024, that period will be very brief. And you can compare the performance of Ukraine of those 2 years with the performance of all the previous governments of Ukraine, and with the performance of other candidate countries. We have candidate countries that have had that status for a long time. So it depends very much on your political will in pursuing an accelerated process. Of course, the ownership of the process has to be Ukrainian. So is Ukraine the one deciding how fast it should move on the accession process? Because it is not an exercise of copy-pasting legislation.
It's true.
That legislation has to be understood, because that legislation came to the current form as a result of tens of years of debates and evolutions. So if
And
you
harmonized with all these levels, regional, municipal, and so on.
and with as a result of previous economic crisis, global or European. It is important to try to understand as much as possible the process that led to the current acquis communautaire, so that when it is implemented in Ukraine, it is you respect both the wording and the spirit of that legislation. Because otherwise, if it is not understood, then the implementation will generate difficulties. And if the implementation is not correct, that will have a negative impact on certain areas of the economy. It will have a negative impact on the day-to-day life of Ukrainian citizens. So a lot of the reasons, so the main reasons for accelerating or delaying a little bit the process has to do with the ability of implementing this acquis communautaire into legislation and day-to-day life. Because otherwise you might have beautiful legislation, but you don't have the tools to implement that legislation properly. And that has to be understood. And this is why I'm saying that the ownership of the process should be the Ukrainian one. The negotiators should avoid the temptation of going to the parliament to say, we have to do that because Brussels has requested that. It has to, the debate in the parliament and the debate in the society here has to do with the reasons why that legislation is favorable for the Ukrainian citizens. That should be the mantra. That should be the main objective of whatever debate, even if it's about legislation that has to do with the environment, with the economy, with taxation, with community policing. All those public policies have to have as the main priority the Ukrainian citizen. And the EU accession process is just a tool, or should be just a tool, in order to offer the Ukrainian citizens a better life, a better perspective for the future. If the exercise of negotiations respects this principle, then once a full member, the number of people, or the number of persons disappointed by the results will be smaller. If the expectations are poorly managed, then the number of disappointed persons will be higher, and then you have the basis for future Eurosceptical political movements in the country. This is how these Eurosceptical political movements came into being into the current EU member states, including Romania.
Thank you for the answer. And also I know that Ukraine additionally should be adaptive, because European legislation also updating every year or even year, and it should be also implemented in Ukraine very quickly.
Well, that's one of the problems with the vocabulary of the negotiation process, because we use the word negotiation. But actually it's not a negotiation about, accommodating legislation. So what you do is to have the picture of the European Union, the way it looks now, a picture of Ukraine, the way it looks now, and you add to these two pictures a picture of the future EU based on the decisions that were already taken without Ukraine at the table, but implemented in the future. And the negotiation is basically how to establish, to agree on a roadmap to unify the current two pictures with the third picture, for the one for the future. And what are the resources that Ukraine needs in order to be assisted, in order to achieve all those objectives that are there, even if Ukraine was not part of the process that led to that. But of course, once you have the negotiations ready and you have the treaty for accession, then that treaty will be ratified by the Verkhovna Rada and it becomes Ukrainian law. And then we consider that, well, there was a debate on that.
You know Ukrainian legislation very well.
Well, it's part of the process
Yes.
that happened in the other countries also. In some countries, they needed also referendums. In our case, we didn't need a referendum in order to ratify the accession treaty, but we did a referendum before that in order to accommodate the Romanian constitution to the future membership. So in 2003, anticipating the end of the negotiations for EU accession, we did have a referendum and we had to change the constitution in order to accommodate some of the commitments we have in the accession treaty.
So I hope that it will be up to 2030. And probably it's not correct question, but if you can comment, is it advantage or somehow delay of Ukraine-EU accession, considering comment of German Chancellor about this model of Ukraine participation in EU institutions during this buffer period before full membership of Ukraine at European Union. Is it advantage or it's some sign of a delay?
So I think that the main target, the main objective for Ukraine should be full-fledged membership with accessions that are merit-based. And that will produce the reforms needed for the Ukrainian economy and society to deal with the status of full membership. But at the same time, because I was mentioning, some of the decisions are being taken without Ukraine at the table. Yeah. So at the same time, it is important to try to generate the space so that the candidate countries can attend, at least, even if not necessarily with the rights to vote, but we have to open progressively the doors of some of the rooms where we are discussing as in a laboratory about future projects, to be more transparent with the candidate countries about the future reforms that the European Union is thinking about itself. So this kind of increased level of transparency about future plans with candidate countries is useful. What will be the exact shape of that, it has to be established. The important thing is that alternatives to full-fledged membership shouldn't be considered, because that could have a negative impact when it comes to mobilizing the people involved in the reform process.
Thank you so much for your comment. And I like your quote from one of your interviews that when by investing to Ukrainian security, Romania invests in its own security guarantees. My question will be considering the finish of the war. It is not also possible to predict when it can finish. We hope that it will be as soon as possible. But how Romania can evaluate current process and possible finish of the war? How Romania also can make some input in finishing this war?
Well, you're right. Basically, the political, economic, humanitarian and military assistance we have provided to Ukraine are investments in our own security. It is very important for us, Ukraine to prevail, Ukraine to be able to reject the Russian aggression, Ukraine to continue to be an independent country, fully sovereign and fully in control of its territory. because that's the best option for Romania as a country that has used the international law as the main line of defense. We are also members of NATO and the European Union, but the main line of defense has been for us always international law, and we think that Ukraine has to have a peace that is fair and is fully consistent with the international law and with the interest of the Ukrainian state, so that we can continue to work together in building our common future within the European Union and to see that dream come true as soon as possible. When it comes to our input, well, it takes different shapes. There is an input that we are providing within NATO. And when we are developing different plans and programs for supporting Ukraine, we are contributing intellectually and materially to those. We have a significant input within the European Union, and there we have been supporting Ukraine. We have been supporting the idea to open as soon as possible all the 6 clusters, because we think that Ukraine is fully prepared to open the negotiations. And then we will be ready to support Ukraine along the process. Of course, we are not a G7 country, so we don't have the resources that other countries can put on the table. But what we can have and we can share with Ukraine is our own experience from the process of negotiations, because of the similarities of our societies, of our economies, and because of the similarities of some of the let's say, complicated bombs we inherited from communist regimes. From that point of view, I think that a lot of the lessons learned from our negotiation process and then from the integration process of Romania in the European Union are very useful for Ukraine. And we are,
so you can share your experience
absolutely.
to Ukraine.
Absolutely, and without a patronizing attitude, because you can learn from our own mistakes also. On some things, we have significant achievements that deserve to be analyzed. And some other cases, there were some mistakes, and the important thing is for our Ukrainian partners to study them, to take the lessons learned, and then to see how those experiences are fitting the national interest of Ukraine. So whatever they learn from Romania and other EU member states, it has to be always used in the national interest of Ukraine, because this process has to be a process that leads to a result that is satisfactory for the society. And of course, going back to the peace negotiations, so we are having also our bilateral talks, and we have always said that from our point of view, a just peace is the one that will fulfill the interest of Ukraine. So independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity, and accountability for the ones that are responsible for the atrocities that have been committed here on the territory of Ukraine against the Ukrainian people.
Thank you for the answer. I'd like to slowly move to another very important dimension and to talk about economy and our bilateral trade relations. Because thanks to Romania, thanks to such neighbors, we have great opportunity to export to other countries, and when the full-scale invasion started, it was one of the just unique routes for Ukrainian goods to go abroad, because our seaports were closed, the airspace is still closed, and we have now also experience in building some cross-border point with common customs service, and is it possible, or is it considered now between our governments to create such a point between Ukraine and Romania, like a pilot project to create this cross-border point with common custom and cross-border services?
Well, you mentioned very rightly that the interconnection between the two countries is very important, and it was very important to have fully functional solidarity lanes in 2022-2023. That was reflected also in our bilateral statistics when it comes to the volumes of merchandise that have crossed the borders. And one of our main priorities has been, since 2022 to date, to develop the interconnection we have at the border. So to increase the capacity of the current checkpoints, to open new checkpoints, and to improve the procedures so that the time needed in order to process the trucks, passengers, and buses is as brief as possible in order to facilitate the contacts, both trade, tourists, and people-to-people contacts between our countries. And if you add to that whatever exports from Ukraine crossing to Republic of Moldova with the purpose of reaching the EU market has to enter Romania also, then our border, which is the largest border of Ukraine with an EU member state, is even larger. So this is why it is important for us, and this is why we agreed in 2023, during the first common governmental meeting of our countries, to a master plan for developing the infrastructure at the border and the infrastructure connecting these checkpoints to our national networks. Because if you don't do it in a coordinated way, then you just move the bottleneck from the border to a bridge or to a bypass within the country. And we are about to inaugurate a new bridge over the TISU River. We are working on continuing to develop capacities, and we are thinking about some new checkpoints. And we are analyzing the possibility of establishing a pilot program for coordinated control, not common control, but coordinated control. Using as a precedent the pilot program we have in Albița at our border with the Republic of Moldova. We are going to have a second pilot program in the area of Galați-Giurgiulești at the border with the Republic of Moldova.
And it should be like a triangle between Ukraine, Moldova, and Romania, or it will be like a...
There is an infrastructure project which is a triangle, but on the coordinated control is only with the Republic of Moldova. And we are going we are preparing with the Ukrainian partners such a pilot project on the Romanian-Ukrainian border. We don't know exactly yet, we didn't choose yet the checkpoint, but we hope to have in the future a decision on that, and then to see how the coordinated control will work, and if we can expand that practice to other checkpoints or not. So we are still assessing. We don't have yet clear conclusions after the Albița pilot project, so that will take some time. But our dream for the future is that whatever whatever infrastructure we develop for controlling will not be necessary once you join not only the European Union but also the Schengen space, so that you can travel from Ukraine to France without stopping at the border. So that should be our priority. Not always easy, because you know that in the case of Romania we joined the European Union in 2007, but we became a full-fledged member of the Schengen area only last year. So it took us a while to be fully integrated into the Schengen area.
We hope. And probably you remember how many new cross-border points was opened, and probably you remember how bigger the capacity of our cross-border export-import operations was increased.
Well, when it comes to new checkpoints, there are two new on roads, one on railroads, and there will be another one which is going to be quite big. So once the bridge over the Tisa River will be open for the public, that will be one of the largest checkpoints at our border. So those are the new ones. And the biggest investments for increasing capacities have taken place at Siret Porupne and in the area of Halmeu at the border with Zakarpattia. That's another area where we have been investing in increasing the capacity because we have there both train and road. And we have also a project that is waiting for finance in that area, and we hope to increase the capacity of that checkpoint even more. In Siret Porupne, there are some investments that are going on now, so there is EU financing for that, and once this project will be done, then again there will be an increased capacity for the Siret Porupne, mostly in the area of the trucks. So the idea will be to expand the number of trucks we are able to process both ways in that area. And of course, when maybe some of the figures that could be relevant, taking into consideration also the river Danube that we can use in order to facilitate trade between the countries, and the transit through Romania of Ukrainian merchandises that are looking for other markets, is that we move from 2.5 million tons capacity of transit to 4 million from 2022 to end of 2023. So in less than 2 years, we almost doubled the capacity of transit through Romania of Ukrainian goods.
So thanks to that, we have our trade turnover increased to $3.4 billion US dollars, if I do not mistake.
Could be. It could be. I was just focusing on the transit, on the
figures can be different here.
The weight, the volume. Of course, you have some different merchandises. Some goods are more expensive. Some others are a little bit cheaper. But as volumes, as number of tons, that's what we are able to handle. Once the alternative corridor on the Black Sea became viable, then there was no need to transit with so many goods the Romanian solidarity lanes. So a significant part of this capacity that was made available is not being used today. We can use it if there are problems with the alternative corridor. But so far, the alternative corridor has been working efficiently, and I think that the volumes that you are handling using the alternative corridor, maritime corridor, are even bigger than before 2022.
Super. So we have even plans for the future, how to scale our activities. I remember that Romania is in top 10 countries for our trade partners, and our trade turnover increased every year from the 2022. I do not remember the categories of these goods. That is usually Ukraine export agriculture products, metal and steel, and also additionally some other goods. But the majority is agriculture. Ukraine import from Romania more products with added value, and that is like a general trade. But it unfortunately do not show the general picture of our potential cooperation. So I'd like to ask you your recommendation. What sectors, what fields of economy can be perspective for our bilateral cooperation? For both trade, export, import, and for joint projects for investments and for joint ventures between Ukrainian and Romanian companies.
Well, I think that if you're looking just at the statistics for trading, you're going to see that the record in our bilateral relations was 2023.
Yep.
But a significant part of that was just transit. So at a certain moment, some of the Ukrainian producers were interested to get out of Ukraine their products and then to Romania and then to see if they can sell it to other markets. And that had an impact on our statistics that might be misleading. So in 2024 and 2025, the figures were less than in 2023. But if you're looking to the structure of the products, you're going to see that both sides have been trading products with increased value added. So the current structure of the bilateral trade is becoming, let's say, healthier and is generating a sustained rhythm of growth. And I think that the future, so the area with the biggest potential is the area of common production. So to integrate Ukrainian and Romanian companies in common chains of production, not only of supplies or selling products, but in developing research and development and producing machinery or other products with value added. And I think that that's one of the areas where we can do much better than we are doing today. There is a lot of potential in the area of energy, both when it comes to resources available and know-how available for both in both countries. There is an increase, and we are working on that. I think that we are having quite interesting projects in that area. Then you have the IT sector that has been quite competitive, both in Romania and Ukraine. And when you want to compete globally, it's good to put together the resources of Ukraine and Romania in this field. There is a lot of potential for tourism because for most of the Ukrainians, and Romania is a mystery. For most of the Romanians, Ukraine is a mystery. But once you start learning about the other countries, actually you discovered very nice stories that were not known for us. About artists, Ukrainian artists that have been living in Romania, Romanian artists that have been living in what is today Ukraine. Stories of Melnitsky and voivodes from Moldavia. They have even family links. The presence on Romanian territory of Mazepa and Orlik, a saint of the Romanian Orthodox Church that actually was born in Poltava. And so there are these cultural trails that can become also tourist trails and are facilitating both common knowledge and people-to-people contact, and also could boost the local economies where the sites connected to these personalities are located. And of course, we can do very interesting projects in the area of transport, because when it comes to rivers, railroads, I think that's one of the areas where we can grow faster. There are some Ukrainian companies that are already positioning themselves in Romania in these sectors. And I think that once a just peace is achieved, they will bring some of the Romanian partners with whom they are working today to Ukraine, so that we can expand the cooperation in that area also.
And I know that there are a lot of Ukrainian companies who have already invested to Romania, and for example, that is company in confectionery production, in pharmaceutical sector, and so on. Probably you can predict which sector from Romanian side can be interesting for investment to Ukraine. Probably you know which Romanian companies have already invested during these 4 years to Ukraine.
Well, there are less Romanian companies present here. Some of them have come to Ukraine despite of the war, and they are operating in the area of energy, mostly in the area of research of natural resources here, providing services to Ukrainian companies, private and state companies. But I think that from the point of view of the value added that the Romanian companies could bring to Ukraine is in the area of energy. That's one of the areas where we have value added, and we can combine with that value added with the value added the Ukrainian companies have here. Transport is one of the areas where we can, let's say, bring our own contribution to rebuilding better what has been destroyed in the transport network. And of course, when it comes to the car industry and everything related to the car industry, we can also pair and partner with Ukrainian companies and to develop together. Engineering, currently there are Ukrainian companies of engineering active in Romania, but also Romanian companies that are present here. Military industry, that's already happening, and I think that they can continue to develop in the future. In the area of renewable, so it's not only the classical energy, but you have in the area of renewables, so we can work together and cooperate, given the fact that there are already quite significant Ukrainian investments in green energy in Romania. Siderurgy, there are already Ukrainian investments in Romania. Tubular Iași has been bought by an Ukrainian company, Tubular Roman by a different Ukrainian company, and we can see already that those two Romanian factories have been integrated in the chain of production of the Ukrainian companies, and we see in our bilateral trade goods moving both directions, raw material, the final product, or additional components of it. So I think that there is a lot of potential on that, and of course the experience we have been gaining when it comes to rural development and rural tourism can be very useful for Ukrainian partners also.
Interesting. And I also noticed that we have a lot of different projects now, even in retail sector, because Ukrainian retail chain Aurora also opened several shops in Romania, and they
a lot of them, not several. We are speaking that they might reach 100 locations so this year. Yes.
Also a lot of different services, I mean restaurants, beauty salons and so on. So Ukrainians smoothly try to open this market for not only for Ukrainian diaspora and Ukrainian refugees, but also to create some benefits for Romanians also, and probably create competitiveness, probably to increase the quality of services. And I think we need your experience in different sectors, and Ukraine also can share our experience in business, in some other sectors. So, and I hope that it will be win-win.
Well, it is already a win-win. The presence on the Romanian territory of a significant number of Ukrainian citizens has, let's say, has passed the milestone of just a humanitarian situation. On the first month, yes, it was mostly humanitarian, but because most of the Ukrainians that are living in Romania didn't want to accept a status of assisted persons, they became quite active. A significant number of them becoming entrepreneurs. So they didn't settle for a job. So they established their own business projects in Romania, and I have just returned from Romania, and it was amazing to see that you see Ukrainian traces in almost everything. So from football championship. The current champion of Romania has Ukrainian players from other sport branches, volleyball, handball, basketball. You see Ukrainian presence there. To major TV shows like The Romanians Have Talent and so on, and you see a lot of Ukrainians participating in those competitions. To restaurants, to let's say reintroducing in Romania some of the old habits of our fathers and grandfathers, like working the wood. The wool together in
Craft.
exactly in a community. It's not just a shop selling you wool or whatever. It's a place where you meet people, and that has again a strong Ukrainian footprint on it, because that was initiated by an Ukrainian lady who established in Bucharest a few years ago. And this is just a few, is not an exhaustive inventory of the examples I can share. There were only a few examples of where I saw Ukrainian women and men that are contributing to defining the shape of the Romanian society today.
That is very interesting, and I really would like to say that our cooperation is an example of very successful cooperation, because we have different cases, and with Romania usually it's everything about friendship, about success, about good examples, and I hope that it will continue further.
It's not that there are not challenges, there are no problems, but
it is somehow hidden.
Not necessarily. So the idea is not to hide the problems. The idea is to see if we can work together in order to find solutions to those problems. And that has been the approach. So we had some concrete examples, cases where problems became public, and then we sat together.
Yeah, it's settled.
We sat together and say, okay, what are the problems? What are wrong perceptions? What are legitimate problems? How can we, both governments, come with a solution, a mechanism that will take care of the legitimate process and the legitimate interest, and how can we provide the right information when the problems were based on fake information. So it's not always easy, because the Russians are not sleeping, and constantly they are trying to generate problems between Ukraine and its friends. And we have seen that all over the place. So the Russians have been trying to undermine the support of the democracies to Ukraine, and that has been true in Romania also. But the important thing is that we have been working together with our Ukrainian partners, state institutions, civil society, and so far we were able to keep control of the situation, and to limit the success of the Russian narratives in trying to spoil this bilateral relationship. And we are committed to continue to work together. And whenever a new challenge will face, we consult together, we exchange views, assessment, and we do brainstorming in order to be sure that we find solutions that are fulfilling the interest of the Romanian and Ukrainian citizens.
And I think that is a great conclusion of this interview. So all these challenges can be settled, and I hope that the war will finish as soon as possible, and our relations will intensify more, and our business relations will be even more bright, and there will be a lot of different joint ventures, and a good example of probably products that is produced by Ukrainians and Romanians. But I still have this question to give you opportunity to make a conclusion and to address to the audience with some final message. Probably somehow activate our people to cooperate even more, or to think about some interesting issues that we do not consider during this interview?
Well, I will start by, let's say, coming with a follow-up statement to my previous statement. One of my previous Dutch colleagues here, a previous Dutch ambassador here, was always telling the Ukrainian partners and the other colleagues in the diplomatic corps that EU full membership for Ukraine doesn't mean that there will be no problems and no subjects where Ukraine and other EU member states will have different opinions. Is the logic of settling those differences of opinions is completely different once you are in the European Union. Because from the very beginning, you start discussing about those topics as partners. Because you have a common project, and the important thing is to succeed and to make the European Union stronger, because a stronger European Union is stronger members also. So my Dutch colleague was always telling me, the differences of opinion will not disappear, but the way we settle those differences of opinion is completely different. And I think that that has to be always kept in mind, because that's the opposite of what Putin is proposing. So that's something, an approach which is based on values, democratic values that we share. And when it comes to future endeavors, what I would suggest to both to Romanians and to Ukrainians is to invest more time to learn about each other. I always try to encourage the Romanians to not to wait until the peace will come. So the Romanian entrepreneurs to start building relations of cooperation with Ukrainian partners now.
So this is a great message, and we really appreciate such kind of.
Because that's important for both countries. I think that it's important for the Romanian entrepreneurs to establish partnerships with Ukrainian entrepreneurs now on these days. It's important both for Ukraine and for Romania, and to encourage to learn more about each other. Because once you learn more about each other, you see that the way we relate to the main moments in our life, birth, marriage, and death, are the same.
Yes.
And if we have that kind of common approach to those very important moments in life, you can build from there cultural similarities.
Even our national clothes, vyshivanka. We have the same.
You have vyshivanka, we have Ia.
Yeah, but I mean that it looks like.
But you know, one of the biggest surprises here for me was last year. So I attended a concert here in Kiev of Aurica Rotaru, a singer from the Chernivtsi region, and it was a concert with more than 1,000 persons in the place. And suddenly she started to sing a Romanian song that I was quite popular in Romania in the 80s. And then I learned that actually that song was written here. Wow. It was very popular in Ukraine and continues to be very, very popular, because the people was dancing with in the concert hall with Aurica Rotaru. Her sister Silvia Rotaru was the one that made it very popular in Ukraine. But for me, in the 80s, I had no idea. I was listening the same song played by another Romanian artist from Romania, but without knowing that actually this is coming from Ukraine. Because at that moment, we knew nothing about Ukraine. This idea that there are no differences was between Russian and the Soviet was something that they have cultivated. Yeah. And now we discover that actually that has been a lie, that has been used in order to try to deny Ukrainian identity, Belarusian identity, Baltic identity, and so on. So that's a very practical surprise in my life to learn
Pleasant surprise.
exactly, about to learn how ignorant I was when I was a teenager and to discover, let's say, 40 years later, that actually that song belongs to this place and not to others.
Amazing. So I hope such surprises will be more.
There are plenty of more, but we don't have time today. I have another list of surprises, very present.
Okay, it will be additional interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexandru.